Hi.
A little concerned that Stacey hasn't reappeared, but I'm going to make a start so that we can get through everything. So thank you all for joining me today. It'd be really nice to get a feel for who's in the room, actually. So could you guys raise your digital hands or real hands if you're on video, if I have worked with you before, if we've actually worked together? Just want to get a sense of the mix of people.
Sort of.
Sort of.
I need to put this on gallery view, don't I? That's better. Hi, Martin. Oh, and here's Stacey back. Good stuff. Hopefully the sound's a bit better for you now. Stacey, nice to see you. And who hasn't worked with me but has kind of interacted me in some way? We've been part of the same community or we've had conversations. Who fits that bill? Smaller number. And who doesn't know me at all and is here on faith? Stacey, digital hands if you're not on camera. Okay, we have some quiet, not on screen people. But I see some digital hands raised. Okay, thank you. Well, for those of you that haven't worked with me before or we aren't part of a community, thank you for being here and having the courage to show up and give 90 minutes of your time in the hope of getting some value. I want to acknowledge you for your courage in leaning in and seeing what you can get from this experience. So thank you. For those of you that don't know much about me, I want to just do a quick background to why I'm here and why I'm delivering this session today. So you have a sense of who I am. I'm like in the high 10, Nyalash. And what's led me here. And please forgive me, because whilst I do that, I'm keeping an eye in case anyone pops up in the waiting room. But I want to tell you a story that takes me back to February 2019. So in February 2019, I attended a group coaching session. And at the time, I was in full-time permanent employment. I was running a small private university. Jamie's familiar with some of the work I did there, and a couple of others of you are as well. And I was wholly immersed in my career, and I liked my job, although it was really stressful. I have young kids. I was under a lot of pressure, and we were growing very fast. So it was a tough gig. And in that coaching session, I was invited to write down what I would be doing if I could have anything I wanted in my career and life. And I've actually got, so you're going to be able to see this, I've got what I wrote down. So you'll see there, eco home, off-grid, professional exec coaching business, lifestyle training, singing, therapy business. So that's what I wrote down, and actually I've got a few more notes in another book here that talk about chickens and having a bit of land and doing stuff, right? So that was in February. Am I giving you the right date? Yeah, that was in February 2019. I'm wondering now whether it was February 2020. When did lockdown happen? Was it 2020 or 20? It was 2020, wasn't it? Right, so that's from February 2020. A month later, lockdown happened, right? So I led my organization through the shenanigans that involved. That was also pretty stressful. And then had this few months where I got a glimpse into another life, where I was based at home, working on my own time, seeing more of my kids, having time to do things like meditate and run. And I saw a life that had more balance and flexibility and freedom than I'd ever really experienced before. Bear in mind, I'd written this goal down a few months before. In the July, when we were talking about returning to the office, I left my job. In the December, this is December just gone, I relocated to rural Ireland and I set up a business delivering executive coaching and integrated therapy, which has taken off and is providing an equivalent income to the one I had when I was running the university. And I have 3 goats and 10 chickens and some land and I live on a lake and I get to go out and be in the outdoors every day. And sort of without even clocking it, I've realized I've delivered on that goal that I wrote down in February 2020. And I tell you that story so that you know that it can be done and it is possible. And if I'm honest, when I wrote down that goal, I was writing it down thinking, this is a lovely dream, but you know, these things don't happen. You know, this will never happen. I had had an attempt at starting my own business about 6 years before and had some small success, but not enough to really give me the confidence and stability and sustainability to take the broader lifestyle changes that I've taken alongside that. So that's a bit about my story, and I hope it just helps give some context to the session we're talking about today, which is how to escape the slavery of full-time employment and make choices and deliver a lifestyle that you really want and feel really aligned to. Because I liked my job and it was comfortable and I was good at it, but I wasn't wholly aligned to it. And I think that showed up in a couple of different ways. At a deep values level, I was not always comfortable with the direction the organisation was taking and the way some of the leadership decisions were made. And it's in my fabric to find that really difficult. And over time, that gap was opening up. But I still think I would have stayed there forever if lockdown hadn't kind of made me wake up and go, oh God, I can have something different. So within the context of this session today, I want you to think about, are you wholly in alignment with the career path that you're on? And to know that if you can bring awareness to that, you can make a different choice. And we'll get into the meat of some of that shortly. And it is possible when you put your energy into something different to create a really different path for yourself and make it successful. But there are a few tricks to that, and I'm also going to share as much of that as I can today. So I've got a couple of requests to you guys so that you get the best value out of the session today. The first request is that you put your cameras on, because I'm not Netflix and it can be a bit daunting to speak into the empty void. So if you are able and you feel willing, it's lovely for me and great for the, the other people in the room, if you would feel willing to put your cameras on. The other thing I'm going to ask is that you stay to the end, because this is a comprehensive session and the value you get from it is going to be based on the energy you put into it. And if you're here because you feel stuck or you want something different in your career, thank you, those of you that are now reluctantly putting videos on. If you want to create something different, then you will get the most value from this if you stay for the whole session. The next thing I'm going to ask of you is that you are here coachable. So what do I mean by that? If we were out shopping for an outfit for you to go to a wedding, and I invited you to try on the purple fluffy jacket, coachable is you try it on even though you're thinking, this is not for me. This is not going to suit me. You try it on anyway for the experience and to see what you discover from the process. So I'm asking you to come with your coachable head on, because again, that will give you the most value from the session. And I'm also going to ask you to be here as a founder and leader of something, not as a disengaged and disgruntled employee. You know the difference. So lean into this, be a part of the team. Let's make this collaborative and discursive, because again, that's how you're going to get the most value from it. And I'm also going to invite you to pay it forward. I think will have announced to you that I'm recording this session now. What I do is make a replay available to people and also usually put these recordings on YouTube. If for you that is difficult or problematic, please contact me after the session and I will edit out any moments where you are visible, specifically talking. But if you feel able to be heard as a part of this session, it will enormously benefit other people that watch the replay, because the real value in this will come from the discussions that we have. So session is being recorded. If that is problematic for you, please just drop me a note and I can deal with that. But think about the opportunity to pay it forward to others that aren't able to be here live. And my final request, that's a good long list for you, is find one action, at least one action that you can take out of today's session for yourself, because transformation happens in the context of action, not just in reflection and taking on information. So find one action for yourself that you can take out of today, and perhaps more. Jamie, is that a hand up? Did you have a question?
It is, because this is being recorded. I would just like to make it clear that I don't want to escape a job that I hate. I actually really like my job, just in case my employer is watching. And I realized I did put this in my calendar and I'm a bit nervous now. My line manager might have seen, why are you going to a seminar about how to escape the job you hate? It's not that the job that I have, I hate, but I'm always keen to explore new and alternative and exciting pathways. And you and I have spoken before about different ways to sort of do that. So I'm really interested to see what I can get from today from yourself, and also hearing from other participants some sort of stories. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of make that clear, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course it is, and perfectly understood. Thanks, Jamie. We don't always want to escape because we hate our job. You know, it's fun to draw out extremes. I didn't hate my job either, actually, but I wasn't wholly in alignment with it. You may not be in that situation either. Katerina, is that a hand up or is that from earlier?
That's from earlier, but I'm in a very similar club.
Yeah.
I don't hate my job. I just want some balance.
I can see that the extreme that I put in the headline title for the workshop is unnerving. I'll have to remember that one. That's useful feedback. Thank you. So thank you for qualifying those. So let me invite you guys to take a reflection. So I'm going to ask you a question. I'd invite you to write down what you get from it. And this is a bit like the exercise I made reference to that I did in February, are we saying 2020? Seems too recent to be possible. So I want you to imagine that it's a couple of years from now and you pick up the phone, you call me up and say, oh, Vicky, that workshop was a turning point for me. Everything is different. I have in my professional life everything I want. I'm happy, I'm aligned, I'm fulfilled. It feels like success. Write down for yourselves right now, what would be happening? What would you be experiencing? Katia, I know that you've just joined us. So the question I've just invited everyone to write down an answer to is, if it was a year or two from now, and we were having a conversation and everything had changed within your career and you were exactly where you wanted to be, experiencing the fulfillment and balance and success that you wanted within your career, what would be happening. So just describe it for yourself. What would you be seeing around you? What would you be hearing? What would you be feeling? And what I'm going to invite you guys to do now is just go into a small breakout group, perhaps 3 people, 2-3 people in a group, and share that vision. That's all, 2 minutes, potted summary. Here is a vision of what I'd love to have. And don't be scared of a breakout group. This needn't mean that you have to disappear out of the meeting, as sometimes happens. It's very short and sweet. And it's an invitation to voice and speak out loud the life you would love to have for yourself. And we're not invited to do that very often. So take the opportunity. Let me, right, 1, 2, 3. So, sorry, I'm just doing breakout rooms. And I'm just going to give you 3 to a room, 7 minutes. So you'll need to be super short and sweet. Person with the shortest hair go first and work down in hair length order. Make it nice and easy for you. I'll see you back here in 7 minutes. Welcome back.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. I didn't realize it would give you an extra minute. I thought it was going to be sudden death after I said 30 seconds. I'm still learning my way around breakout rooms. There's a few more last rooms still to come in, I think. Everyone. How was the process of voicing that vision? Deathly silence. Will someone share what they took out of that experience? Who would like to share?
I'll share, Victoria.
Thank you, Fiona.
So I actually found by speaking out loud, it helped me to visualize it as well in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that I said to Jamie were different, slightly different than what I'd written down. So it kind of reinforced some of it, but then it also gave me some little extra points as well. And I think it was interesting, some of the observations that Jamie made as well. So yes, I took some things away from that.
Okay, so it grew and shifted.
Yes.
Being voiced.
Yeah.
And how did it feel, Fiona, to state this thing out loud?
A little bit scary in some ways, because it's kind of putting it out there in the universe.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a little bit scary because it's not just in my head.
Yeah. That story I told you about February 2020, when I went to that session, we did what we've just done. We wrote down our vision and then we talked it through in a small group. And then people were invited to come and share. and someone else from my group nominated me to go and stand at the front of the room. There are about probably 80 people. And I'm quite an experienced public speaker, and I was quaking to go up to the front. And I think it wasn't the public speaking bit, it was the voicing this goal, this vision. But I have wondered, would it have come to life if I hadn't voiced it in front of all those people and somehow given it that energy and fuel? How many of you, show of hands, have shared this vision with someone else before today? Stacey, Alison, Katia?
Half and half.
Half and half.
I'm going to be on the fence.
Okay. So if we work from the premise that voicing this and giving energy to it helps it become real, then here is an opportunity for an action for you. Just an opportunity. Which action you take is up to you. To voice it outside of this little space. To share it and see what energy that creates. So that's one opportunity. Does anyone feel like they would like to share their vision with this slightly bigger group here and now? Who's feeling brave? Is it bubbling there? Are you thinking, oh, could I? Go on.
I mean, I'm happy to say something, Vicky.
Go for it, Jamie.
Just kind of building on what you were saying about giving it a voice gives it some action. So just reflecting on my my PhD from many years ago, I've looked at something called prospective memory, which is memory for the future. And there's a lot of research out there that shows that actually if you act out that intention, you're more likely to remember it. You've got, we're both psychology backgrounds, aren't we? You've got that kind of that multimodality that helps sort of really sort of encode it in the brain, and then when the times comes, you're more likely to sort of do it. So there you go. There's a little bit of research that sort of backs this sort of up as well. But yeah, so in terms of my sort of vision, I was saying to Fiona, very similar to the situation in at the moment, but love to sort of enhance it and have a little bit more sustainability, I think. So at the moment we've got the option to work at home, but we can also sort of go into the office, and the office is part of sort of a co-working space, which is really nice, sort of meeting up with other individuals from other sort of businesses. There's a communal sort of coffee area, like water cooler, and some funky furniture, which is quite cool. But at the same time, it's been lovely the last 18 months. I've had a bit more time to spend with my girls, taking on a bit more responsibility with them, sort of picking them up and taking them places, and just sort of being with them. So I didn't mention to Fiona, but something worth mentioning, I think we've all seen an increasing screen time in different sort of forms, and actually we haven't been out as much as we'd like, but we're waiting for a sort of house move, and that house move will sort of open it up and enable us to, encourage us, I think, to go out and enjoy those outdoor spaces a bit more. So it's something I'm sort of looking forward to, and want to encourage everyone to do less of that sort of screen time. I sort of spoke about getting up each morning with a smile on my face and going to bed with a sort of a smile, but also sharing positive reflections with my wife. That's something we've sort of done in the past, and that's been really sort of effective. And having more of a sustainable home, so eco home, similar to something that you're sort of enjoying, and I think more more time to sort of support the local community. So as well as supporting the family, actually extending that wider as well, playing a bit more of a sort of a positive role in the local community. So lots there.
Lots there. And it's interesting, I think, that when we think about a vision for where we want to be professionally, you know, work-wise, what it really is a corridor into the lifestyle that we want to have: balance, more green spaces, time with the kids. So it's an access point. But we so often forget that, I think. So work sits as the big rock in the middle of everything, and then we slot the other things in around it, rather than defining the lifestyle that we want to have, the life that we want to live, and deciding where does the particular rock of work sit within that. And when we are working in a way that's wholly aligned and fulfilling, it stops feeling like work. And that's a really interesting place to be as well. And there are still the challenges. If I'm really motivated and aligned to this thing called work, then it might still create pressures and imbalances against other things that are important to me. But it's a much easier, more joyful, sort of flowing thing than when it's something we do that the other stuff is slotted in around. So thank you for sharing that, Jamie. Who else would like to share either what they got from that little discussion and vocalizing of the place you'd like to be, or the vision itself? Who else is willing to have the courage to give it voice and fuel? I know someone wants to, but is maybe a bit daunted.
I will.
Thank you, Stacey. Good one.
I think the things that I want to do are kind of at odds against each other in a way. Like, I don't know how they would all be able to be done, because I would like to work my own hours, preferably in a rural location similar to you. But then on the other hand, I want to do something that's going to benefit the community, which would be more the community here in Manchester. And most of the jobs I've done have been in a kind of supportive role, which is something that I would like to continue. But I'd also like to be stress-free and happy. And so they all kind of are a bit at odds with each other, how to be able to work to benefit the community that's not going to be stressful, and just it feels a bit of a contradiction in a way.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Stacey, and we will come on to some of those blocks that make it feel difficult. And I want to come back to something Jamie said about the psychology of these things. So when we create a clear vision for something, and I hear that maybe there's not that clarity for you yet, Stacey, but that's something that you're working towards. We have something called the reticular activating system, part of the brain that filters information for us, and it filters based on our existing beliefs and what we're focused on. And when we vocalize something new, even if that something new feels challenging or even impossible right now, when we frame it clearly by speaking it, by writing it, by picturing it, we start filtering information differently. We are exposed to something in the order of 11 million pieces of information each moment. You know, colors, shapes, symbols, meaning, it's all around us. We experience less than 200. So we're exposed to all of this information, but we can only experience and take in about 200 bits of information per second. The 200 that I take in could be completely different to the 200 that you, Stacey, take in, or Jamie, you take in, or anyone else. And in that respect, we shape our own reality. The reticular activating system is the part of the brain that dictates that filtering. And it's the same bit of the brain that when you decide you want to buy a Mini Cooper, all of a sudden you start seeing them everywhere because you've attuned your RAS to look for them. Or, you know, when you learn a new word on a word of the day calendar or something like that, and all of a sudden you start hearing and seeing it, and you've never even noticed it before. It's that same function of the brain. So when I gave voice to that vision for a life that seemed like a different life, whenever it was, a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, what I did was attune my perceptual filters to something new, to something that was outside of my field of experience. And I started noticing things. This wasn't a conscious process. This happens at a subconscious level. We start noticing opportunities. We start seeing different things. So creating that clarity of vision is probably the first thing I would offer you. Extending that little exercise that we did today and looking at it in a bit more detail, whether it's because you like a vision board or you like to have something written down as a reminder, or it's helpful for you to talk this out. And on that topic, I would offer all of you an opportunity to have a one-to-one with me and talk this out, to give it voice and to really kind of crystallize and dig into what this vision could look like, just as an exercise in honing that focus and giving it a bit more time and energy than you did in the 7 minutes a moment ago. So I'll stick a link in now while I think of it, so that you have that available. But if you're serious and you want to give some voice and energy to this, then take an opportunity to book that call. So let's talk some more about this. So a next reflection for you. You have this vision of the life you'd like to have, but you don't have that right now. That life and career is not what you are living right now. And what you are living right now might be absolutely fine and fit for purpose for you, but there's an itch that's not getting scratched about this thing that you would love to create. The next thing I'd like you to write down is what's in your way or what's stopping you. So just take a couple of moments to think about, why don't you have that already? So can I just get a feel for the kinds of things people have on that list, of the things that are in the way between you and having that shape of vision that you wrote down? Let me hear one thing from everyone. I'm going to go around the room. Jamie.
Which one to pick? I think the biggest one, if I were to identify the biggest one, I think for me it's financial. As the main sort of breadwinner, changing in circumstances, how would actually we put the finances in place to continue to be able to pay the bills and do the other things that we enjoy, if you like.
Yeah.
So
okay. Financial stuff. Fiona?
I'm going to say I don't have enough time to start.
Not enough time to start. Okay. Katerina?
My vision is not aligned with that of my family. So that's the primary obstacle.
Yeah.
And financial comes to play there as well.
Alison?
I also had financial, but I would add to this like sort of negative habits or patterns that keep me from having the time that I want.
Okay, so habits and time again. Katya?
Oh, I think I have a lack of emotional and yes, of emotional support, I think.
Okay.
I'm always alone with all my thoughts and visions, and yes, I think I need a partner.
Okay. Katya, I'd really encourage you to book a call so that you can share and have some partnership in the moment of that call. The link's there in the chat for you.
Good.
Stacey?
I think the main one is like fear of being unable to provide and pay the bills and everything, because I'm the main breadwinner in my home, and a fear of change as well. Like you get so stuck into the same habit and you know that that's going to financially take care of you, so even if it's damaging your own mental health and the way you feel about yourself, you continue to do it because it's like security. And just having, when you're that focused into your job, it's like you've got less time to really think about anything else, because you end up in a cycle of just working, coming home. It's like Groundhog Day, doing the same thing every day. Your mind doesn't really go into that space. Sorry, that was a lot.
It's a bit of a mix of everything else, isn't it? There's the finances, the time, the habit, and a bit of the comfort of the thing you're in, meaning that there's never quite enough momentum to push through those fears and challenges. So you sort of end up comfortably cycling in this place that you end up stuck in. Martin's just mentioned to me that the link is possibly not visible in the chat, so I'm just putting it back in the chat so that you actually have it. Martin?
I had a lot of reasons, but they all broke down to one core, which was just fear.
Yeah.
Just plain fear for me. Fear of finance, fear of change, fear. It just breaks down to fear.
Okay, thank you. Hannah?
Yeah, I had some of the same reasons, but I think probably the biggest one for me is energy, as in I'm just exhausted at the moment, like cumulatively. So almost to kind of have any availability in terms of headspace, or even just getting to the clarity of the what, let alone the then doing it. You know, it's really hard. I think it's sort of just probably like a sense of feeling pretty burnt out. So actually it's really hard. Yeah, so it's just really hard to kind of get to anything almost at the moment, let alone, you know, life changes and so on.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to something probably quite prevalent, which is that when we realize that things need to change because we get to that place, we are often at our most depleted in terms of resourcefulness and resources to create the headspace, to create the change that would break us out of the cycle.
Yeah, completely. And I think that's, you know, so you either end up making very big decisions because you're sort of at a breaking point, and that's what I have effectively done. But then there's a sort of a now what, as in it's sort of almost you have to regroup and rebuild like the basics almost before you can get to any of the bigger stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. You have to create some stability in order to create the headspace to move forward again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, the word that you used that just really resonated with me, it's almost sort of like resourcefulness. I'd say, you know, on a good day, I am super resourceful. However, I don't feel very resourceful at the moment. And, you know, when we had our conversation around vision, I was a bit like, I literally just don't know where to start. You know, it's sort of, and so I think there's that sense of sort of almost like getting to ground zero because I haven't even got there yet, so that I can then build up from there.
Yeah. Thanks, Hannah. And Nyalash, are you there? I can't tell whether you're here with us in real time. You are here. What's your big blocker or barrier to having that vision that you created? And if you're able to unmute and actually speak, that would be great. But if not, bung it in the chat box. Oh, that's unfortunate. You think something is wrong with your device. I think that's you explaining why you can't unmute rather than why you can't have the vision. So you might have to summarize it in a word or two for us. So Nyalash, I don't know whether you're able to respond, so I'm going to move on. And apologies if that means I'm cutting you off as you're furiously typing. We'll spot it and I'll come back to it. So thanks for sharing that, everyone. So I hear a lot about money and time and perhaps not having the support and alignment around you. And there's something about having the energy and focus space to create that clarity that makes moving forward possible. Who would like to be coached right now on that block? Stacey. Good for you. Unmute yourself.
I've got to the point where I've quit my job. I don't actually have anything lined up, so it's kind of a bit of a panic. Well, I'm trying to not panic because I feel like because I've released the energy and stress of that job now, I've left a space open for something more positive to fill it. But obviously there's still a bit of panic in there, thinking I've got bills and things to pay. But I just felt like I had to let that go to be able to move forward. So I've set up a CIC. I don't know where I'm getting funding from or anything like that, but I'm just kind of living in hope at the moment that everything's going to work itself out.
Okay, so firstly, I want to congratulate you on opening up the space for yourself and taking some difficult action and having some hope, because that's a big step. That's that momentum. It's like a rocket leaving the atmosphere, you know, it's kind of, you've got to have lots of fuel to get up, and you've made that first push. And what I'm hearing is there's hope and there's panic and a lack of a clear roadmap and path.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. What would you do if you knew you could not fail? What would you do next?
I think I'm doing everything that I can at the moment. So I'm trying to make positive connections, and I'm trying to work out how to promote what I'm doing. Like, I'm kind of feeling my way around. So I think because I've took that leap, I kind of don't have a choice in thinking that it's not going to work, because it's got to work, because I've done it now. So I've not really thought about it not working, because it has to.
Okay, so you've got that determination and that belief. What strategies and skills do you need to match that belief, to create that reality for yourself?
I think because obviously I've never started a business. Well, I have attempted to start a business before, but it's just knowing like the steps to take. If you've not done something before, you kind of just searching around to try and work out the path. So you probably end up stumbling and going in the wrong direction a few times. So it'd be good to just know, like, right, this is what you need to do next, then you need to do this, like have some kind of set plan instead of fumbling around in the dark.
Okay, so I'm hearing that your mindset's broadly good, but you haven't done this before, so you need to learn.
Yeah.
And create a plan.
Yeah.
So how might you go about learning and creating a plan for yourself?
Oh, you're putting it all on me.
Do you see that sign? Do you see that sign behind me? Can you read it from there?
No, the middle bit's blurry.
The answer is you.
Yeah.
I'm putting it all on you because you're the only one that can make it happen. But you do get to have help.
Yeah.
Community and like-minded people around you. So sorry, I interrupted. Go on.
I've forgotten the question now.
How can you create for yourself the skill set that you need and a plan to move you forward?
I think it's just speaking to people that have already got the knowledge and asking questions and hoping that people will be kind enough to give you a bit of advice and guidance. So yeah, that I've just been trying to connect with people that are more experienced and might be able to give me advice, really.
Great. So Stacey, are you going to book a call with me?
Yeah, probably.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely something I can help you with. And that's
Yeah.
with no obligation or expectation.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you will find next is that you will find an abundance of information. All sorts of directions you could go, all sorts of things you could do. So how can you filter in order to make sure that you create what you want to create?
That's the hard part, knowing what's useful and what isn't. But I suppose you have to kind of trust trust your own instincts, like kind of follow the energy where it's leading you. And I don't know, you just have to trust yourself, don't you, that you're filtering it out correctly.
So I want to offer you 4 key ingredients that I think are really important given the stage that you're at. And do have a read of the comments in the chat box here as well, because there's lots of supportive comments coming from the other people in the room.
Thank you.
So you mentioned earlier that there was some fuzziness around the vision. You've got an idea, you're kind of moving forward. I want to put to you that, and this is, I'm talking to Stacey, but I'm talking to all of you, because this is kind of the key structure, if you like, or helpful model for you to take away from today. You need to be really clear on what it is that you are creating, and you don't have to do that on your own. I work with a lot of people who, when they're building something new, think that it has to be perfect, beautifully articulated on a lovely web page or on a lovely CV if it's a new opportunity they're looking for, before they go and have any discussions with people. I think what I heard from you, Stacey, is that you are going to seek to reach out to lots of people, and I really encourage that. Having clarity of vision is vital, but knowing that that's something that can be shaped and iterated through enjoyable discussion, you know, and reaching out to people and exploring is a great way of getting that. I think that that vision needs to have a few key components. You need to ultimately figure out the business, the thing, the proposition that you're creating. And that's a really valuable thing to do through exploration and discussion. But knowing your values and the lifestyle you want to create for yourself that's going to sit around that is really important. Lots of people branch out on their own in business. And actually, I had to have a bit of a word with myself on this topic. They end up working more or harder than they did when they were employed and sort of under the paymaster of someone else. So being really clear on your values and your purpose. What are you here to do in this world? What is your gift? And that comes with personal reflection, and how you then package that and explore it with others is something that can happen through conversation. So that's the first component. It's almost like that personal credo that you're going to live by, and how you, the story that you have that underpins that, and the skills and capabilities that you have that make that valuable to others as well. You then need a skill set. And I don't so much mean the skill set in the work that you want to do, because the work that you want to do is informed by the experiences you've had and the capabilities you've got. I mean the skill set to create a small business. Because if that's, you know, if that's what is going to represent an escape route for you from a job that you're not in complete alignment of, or you've already created that escape route and now you need to make it work by building a business for yourself, or successful self-employment and the sustainable income, you need the strategies and skills to do that. And that might be about learning how to develop a proposition, how to price that, the language of the funders or the clients that you might work with, the way decision-making chains work within businesses, or the psychology of decision-making for individuals. And one of the biggest things that bubbles up for people in this space is self-worth. So that leads me on to the third critical requirement here, which is having sufficient self-belief and confidence to value the thing that you offer in a way that is sustainable. I live in the world of coaches, and NLP practitioners and hypnotherapists and people that do lovely work serving and supporting others to achieve their potential and realize their ambitions. And so many of us struggle to attach an appropriate value to the work that we do and end up running a business that is not sustainable financially. Now, Stacey, if you weren't able to create those funders or struggled to kind of overcome those hurdles or priced what you did too low, even though it comes from a place of heart and service, what would happen to the gift that you have to offer the world?
It would probably make me feel quite depleted because I've tried to do something really positive and it's not worked out, and then I'd end up having to go back to doing something that I don't really want to do.
Right. And the people that will benefit when you do make this thing live and breathe, tell me about the recipients of the service that you will create. How will it benefit others?
It's to provide. I've been working in a school for the past nearly 9 years as an assistant Senko, and I have I've decided to start a support and advisory service for parents who believe that their child may have an SEN, but school are not being very supportive in providing what they need. Mm-hmm. So it would be to give them advice so they know what they should be asking school for. If they didn't feel comfortable, to advocate on their behalf. And also I'm qualified as a psychometric tester, so I could test the children if the parents have concerns and provide a report for them to take to school so that it can show, that there is some underlying needs. Because a lot of young people get excluded from school that do have underlying needs that have never been identified. So if a child's under assessment, it's more difficult to exclude them from school. So I'm trying to stop children being excluded and for their needs to be met and recognised. And there's been research around the Peru to prison pipeline. So I'm really trying to put a spanner in the works of that as well, because it's just I think there needs to be more early intervention, especially primary school. That's when they need to be being identified. So I just don't, it ends up rolling on, and then some of the children end up in prison. And there's a lot of statistics that show people in prison have something like 25% of prisoners have a speech and language difficulty that's never been identified. So I feel like I'm explaining it really badly because I feel a bit on camera and on the spot, but it's all for positive. It's for young people's benefit.
I hear that, Stacey. So what I hear in that is a powerful mission. And again, if you take a look at the chat when we finish talking, you will see how you just vocalizing that mission is hitting people in the guts on this call right now. So you making this work so that you can stay on track with that mission is so important. And you having to learn some less exciting business skills so that you can deliver on that mission. It doesn't just benefit you so that you don't have to go back to plan B of employment. it enables you to create that positive impact, enormously positive impact in the world around you. And there's a lot of love coming your way.
Thank you.
So Stacey, what are you getting from all of this?
I know that it's something that I need to continue with, even though it's scary. I know that I do need support to make it a reality. But I do feel like I've done the right thing. So that's positive.
Congratulations. Well
Thank
done.
you.
Well done. Here we go. Jamie is giving you great confirmation of the opportunity and some useful guidance there. So that speaks to me for the fourth area that I think is really important, and I will recap because we've meandered around these four areas. Stacey, when you get a chance to read these comments, what you will see is that you vocalizing, albeit imperfectly and a bit on the spot, what you are about, what you are trying to create has pulled on people emotionally. You now have several people within this room that if you reached out to them and said, can I pick your brains? Can we talk about this idea? Who can you connect me to? I think would arms open say, yep, I want to support you. So being able to tell our story and crystallize our purpose, the thing we're here to do, you know, that motivation we have to do something important is of itself enormous and important value. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be from the heart and rough and ready, and that heartfeltness speaks to people. So having clarity on that and being able to tell that story is the first thing. The skill set we've talked about. It's so important that you make this work. You've got the belief, you know where you want to be. There's a bit of refinement to go on the idea, and that will come in conversation. And you now need to make sure that you make it work financially, and that you get the funding, and that you can survive on what it gives you financially so that you can breathe life into it. So the second thing is the skill set, the vision. You need the skill set to make this stuff work, guys. The third thing, which I hear that you have, is the mindset and belief. You mentioned a bit of fear and panic. For any of you, whether that fear is about, can I make this work financially? Or do I really have the clarity? Or, you know, the sense that there's just not enough time to focus on this. These are, to a degree, beliefs. They're stories. They're, you know, the emotion of fear is underpinning. That shows up and influences our decisions. The question I asked you, Stacey, at the very beginning was, if you knew you could not fail, what would you do? And actually I heard that, well, I've got to make this work, but there's still a bit of panic. If we can act from that place of bulletproof belief, our chances of success are 100%. Here's a story that might help illustrate that. So I started a business back in 2013. I left an employer. I was way out of alignment. I had just had a baby. I was the only income. My husband was doing childcare stuff. He wasn't working at the time. We had a big fat mortgage. I'd been an executive shareholder and I ran away from it because the culture was toxic, went and had a baby, came back and realized that everything had unraveled. And I started a strategy consultancy business. That's kind of my background. And it was okay. I gained a retained client that gave me some stability. They went on to be my next employer. And I won another client or two that gave me kind of lumpy bits of income. But to all intents and purposes, financially, it worked. But my belief never caught up to my skill set. So when the opportunity to take permanent employment came my way, I gave up on freedom and flexibility, and I went for security, even though the thing was working, like it was giving me security. So that, you know, the importance of that third pillar of believing both in what you're doing and why you're doing it, but in your ability to make it work, is what guarantees success. And without that, if you leave room for that little bit of doubt, there's always a bit of a pull. There's always a monkey on the shoulder. There's always that plan B. I'll just keep an eye on the job market just in case. Maybe I'll take a bit of part-time work. Maybe I'll take a contract. It just pulls because we can't quite believe that we're going to do this. So mindset and belief is the third pillar for success. And the fourth, which we haven't talked about a whole lot, but I think has shown itself, is support network, community. So Stacey, you have shared some of what you would like to build and had a swell of support and interest and guidance just by sharing within the context of this room. And when we talked about the blocks, lack of support, lack of emotional support, feeling in it on my own, not being aligned to the people around me, these come up as real challenges for us. So the final thing I want to put to you is find people that will balance that or give you that community and support that's going to help you make it work, that will hold you accountable when the going gets tough, that will remind you of that vision and say, remember why you're in this? You know, when it's difficult or when you get rejection or when someone says no, and yes lives in the land of no, by the way. You know, you will be rejected when you take your funding bid out, Stacey. It may not be the first one that gets through, but as long as you keep persisting, you'll get the yes, you'll get the funding you need. But it can be hard sometimes going through the no's in order to get the yes. And that's true whether it's funding bids or potential employers or clients or customers. So having the support around you to handle the hurdles and bumps that come along the way is vital. And building anything or creating substantive change is difficult. So if it's comfortable, you're probably not stretching enough to make it sustainable. Because where you've been, even though you might not have been joyfully where you've been and you might have wanted something different, has been comfortable and familiar. And it's that rocket leaving the atmosphere thing. It takes a real kind of push to get out of the atmosphere and into the new place. And sometimes we need people along the way to kind of hold us in that discomfort so that we can push through it and get to the other side. What are we getting from this? Would anyone like to share what they're feeling?
I will share if you want me to, Victoria.
You do, Fiona.
I thought it was really interesting, that comment that you just made about self-doubt, because actually I picked up on that, always having plan Bs. I hadn't kind of looked at as plan B as me doubting myself, and I think that's what I've been doing, and keeping an eye on different things. So yes, I thought that was quite interesting, so I've taken that away. Yeah, yes.
Good for you.
Yeah, thank you for that one.
Is self-doubt lurking for anyone else? The temptation of the plan B?
Yeah, and I think the support network, that support network needs to start at home. So yeah, something that I've taken away is actually I probably haven't talked to the missus about some of these visions. It's it's an interesting exercise sharing it with people that I don't know, and one person that I've met once a few years ago, and yet it hasn't started at home. So yeah, I think need to certainly explore it further at home and begin to build that support network.
Yeah, I think that's a really valuable point, Jamie. And again, to share an anecdote, when I first started on this journey, breadwinner as usual, initially, my husband was really supportive of us making this change. And then in the first couple of months after me leaving employment, whilst we were considering options, and whilst I wasn't building the thing that I'd voiced, and maybe still had quite a lot of self-doubt within me, he started getting twitchy. You better start applying for other jobs. This isn't really going anywhere. You know, what's really happening? And I had to convince myself in order to convince him. I think I kind of wanted him to go, you're brilliant, you'll make it work, stick with it. But really, he was just a mirror for what I was experiencing, which was maybe I ought to look for jobs again. And of course, then when he said it to me, it was like red rag to a bull, because he'd done that annoying thing of speaking a truth that I hadn't properly looked at and admitted to myself. But actually within that conversation, a lot got flushed out and it created some momentum and impetus. So I think you're right, Jamie. Engaging people that care for us and that we care for in that vision is really helpful. But remember that they will be a mirror. So if what you get isn't what you want to hear from that conversation, you're human, right? But try not to be too frustrated with them. Because if you knew you could not fail, they would feel that and get it and be absolutely in it with you. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're just about at the end of the session. It would be great to, I'd love to just do a final, what is the key thing that you found most insightful from the session today? Before we do, let's have a show of hands. Who has had value from the session today? Digital hands if you're not on camera. Good stuff. And who would like the opportunity to explore their vision in a bit more detail? Keep your hand up. Okay, so everyone with your hand up, please use the link in the chat to book a call with me. That is without obligation or expectation, and it is an opportunity for you to continue breathing life and energy into that vision and get some support on crystallizing it, create a bit more space and clarity around it. Oh, I've sent it only to you, Jamie. Sorry, let me try again. So whilst we just do a final wrap up, click on the link so that you have the window open, because when I close the meeting, the link will be gone. But you can always contact me and get another one. So let's do a quick round the room. I'd love to hear the thing that most got you in the guts that you've taken away from this, that you're gonna act on. I invited you to take a commitment to an action, however great or small. So let's hear main insight and the action that you're going to take. Alison, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I think maybe the kick in the gut was that the answer to the question, what would I do if I could not fail? Which of course I've heard this a lot, but I actually gave myself maybe a more honest answer. It was very different from the ideal picture that I formed at the beginning, because the ideal picture I formed at the beginning was under different assumptions. Like,
I get it.
It was a different thing. So I think that was the biggest takeaway. So for me, the work to do is think about the distance between those two things and figure out what the real picture is.
Good stuff. Thank you. Jamie?
I think what's been most valuable is hearing some of the barriers that I sort of have set up for myself, not as necessarily addressed. Others are feeling them as well. And I think coming back to that point about the support networks and starting at home, and yeah, that action for me is definitely talk to Mrs. Mackay about my thoughts, and where I'd like to help take us, I think, because, you know, although it'll be me directly impacted, it will impact on the wider family as well, so in a positive way.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jamie. Hannah?
I've taken a lot out of the session. It's been super helpful and very timely, so thank you for that. I think the point around plan Bs is a really interesting one, and I'm in a sort of transition point at the moment, and there's some plan Bs that have already emerged just as you start to have conversations. And I think part of my problem is I don't know what plan A is. So plan B starts to look like, well, yeah, maybe I could do a bit of freelancing, or maybe I could, you know. So I think it's the combination of what is it I'm creating, and how do I not create the plan Bs that sit around that at the same time. So it's sort of a twofold one, I guess.
Yeah, I get it. Thanks for sharing.
It's been super helpful.
Good stuff. And Stacey?
I'd just like to say thank you, first of all. Sorry, I feel like I've hogged most of this time. I've taken away that I need to have the belief in my ability and what I can achieve. And I'm just really appreciative of the lovely comments. So it confirms that I am doing something positive, and I've made the right decision.
I'm so pleased for you, Stacey, that you were here and that you got to experience that.
Thank you.
Katerina?
For me, two things resonated the most. The first one, the creating change is difficult, and on reflection, perhaps I think I wasn't really yet trying hard enough. And secondly, acting from the 100% bulletproof belief that what you're doing is the right thing. And thirdly, starting at home essentially, and building up the support network for your plans. Yeah, immensely useful session. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks, Katerina. And Fiona?
Okay, so I found it very motivational. It was brilliant, and I've just got that feeling that I can do this, and I'm going to get over those blocks. So I am going to map it out in more detail, and I'm going to give you a call, Victoria.
Yeehaw! High five.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your time and energy and focus today. I'm glad you all took something from it, and honour your commitment to yourselves to take those actions. Give me a shout if it would be helpful to create some space around them and talk. And thank you very much all for being here. It's been lovely having the time with you today.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.